Stakeholder Engagement Committee meeting on this day, Wednesday, May the 18th. For those of you who do not know, I am Shebra Evans, and I am the chair of the committee. And at this time, I'm going to have my colleagues introduce themselves. And we will start with Vice President Silvestre.
Good morning, everyone. Carla Silvestre, good to be here.
Good morning, Rebecca Smondrowski. Nice to see you.
So I am excited about the discussion that we are going to have. We brought forward to the community back in early September what the plans were for our committee. And we've heard from you all loud and clear about what communication looks like at the district level, at the school level, and in the classroom. And so your priorities are, of course, matching with the board's priorities. And so we are excited to be able to have this conversation, candid conversation of what to expect at those levels. And I also hope that we will talk about what some of the challenges could be, right? And how we're working through that. We always say you don't have to be sick to get better. And so we always want to, strive to make improvements. So I'm excited about the people that we're going to have at the table today. And just looking forward to the conversation. So I'll let each of you also introduce yourselves, and then we can go ahead and begin with the conversation.
Before you do that, just one point of order. The informational summaries, do we have to vote on that or no?
So, and I'll just, thank you, Ms. Smondrowski. I'll let them introduce themselves, and then I'll go into asking the question. But we can ask it right now. If any of my colleagues have any questions or edits to the informational summary. Okay. And then I did want to acknowledge our board staff as well. I'm rushing to get started. I'm excited about the conversation, and so I don't want to forget them. We have Sabrina here today to take notes and keep us on track, as well as Mr. Fitzpatrick. And then we have an intern that Christian, okay? So welcome, Christian, today. And then so now I will go ahead and turn it back over to Mr. Cram, Mr. Everett.
Good morning. We're excited about today's presentation, too. I'm Chris Cram, the Director of Communications for Montgomery County Public Schools. Good morning.
Thank you.
And good morning. Thank you for having us this morning, as always. Everett Davis. I serve as the Acting Associate Superintendent for Student, Family Support, and Engagement.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Kara Trenkamp, and I am the Director for Technology Integration and Learning Management Systems.
Very good.
So, Mr. Davis, I think you're going to get us started today.
Jump right in.
So thank you, Mr. Cram, and good morning to Chair Evans, Vice President Silvestre, Ms. Mondrowski. Really appreciate the opportunity again to be here with you and to represent Student Family Support and Engagement, or the SFSE team, particularly around this topic. Thank you again for the opportunity. We're going to share a little bit regarding communication expectations, as well as some best practices at the system, school, and also classroom levels. As I've done previously, I always like to begin by establishing the direct connection that this topic has. I think it's important always to look at the connection to the topics that we discuss. Number one, to the Board of Ed strategic plan around community engagement and well-being. Also to our DSIP, well-being support, as well as to Dr. McKnight's priorities, one of which speaks to engaging our stakeholders and also rebuilding trust. So having served as a district and school-based administrator, a former teacher, as well as a current MCPS parent, I recognize what a powerful component communication is to engagement, and thus rebuilding trust with all of our stakeholders. So just extremely excited about this topic for today. If we can go to the next slide, please. So as our name in SFSE implies, engagement is a major body of our work. A critical and essential driving force to this body of work is communication. We go to the next slide, please. As you will hear from today's presentation, this communication must occur at the system, school, and classroom level in order to reach our students, our families, and our staff where they are. I'm reminded of a recent conversation that I had while on the soccer field with my son. One of the fellow parents said, and he didn't know my affiliation with MCPS, but he shared his frustration with all of the emails that he received both from the system as well as from his child's school. And he told me I just delete them. And as I reflected on this conversation, I was reminded that we must not only reflect on the volume of our communication, but also on the methods or the medium that we use in which we communicate. And I continue to reflect as this parent shared indirectly. We still have work to do to meet him in the best way to communicate with him where he is. So, as we continue on, I also want to mention that this communication is a collaborative effort. We collaborate extensively with our schools to analyze, develop, and refine tactics and best practices that allow us to reach, again, our aspirational goal and charge is to reach all of our students, all of our staff, and all of our schools, which includes our families and also our community partners. So as you can see from this Venn diagram, the goal is and continues to be connecting for student success, which includes their well-being, safety, and security. To that end, I'm pleased to be joined by my colleagues in communications, also in technology, integration, and support, SFSC, I know is out in the audience, and several of our principals and also our parent leaders who you will hear from the Family Engagement Advisory Team, or FEAT. And I'll ask them to introduce themselves in turn. So during our time this morning, you'll receive an overview of our district level communication, as I mentioned, our school level communication, feedback from our parents, and also goals for improvement, as Ms. Evans mentioned. I want to acknowledge that this body of work continues to represent our charge and is, in fact, a work in progress. We operate from an assets-based mindset and are in a state of continuous improvement. So, for example, thinking back to the anecdote I just shared with you around the soccer parent, and also the term that we sometimes use about our hard-to-reach families, I really believe our charge and our obligation, I'm sure my colleagues join me, is to find innovative and creative ways to meet our families, all of our stakeholders for that matter, where they are, that in a way that matches their strengths and also their preferred method of communication. So for today, you'll hear a little bit more about all of that, and I'm going to ask if we can go to the next slide, and also I will turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Cram.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, and I'm so sorry to hear about that person you met on the soccer field. That unfortunately is a missed audience, but again, important feedback in that moment about an area of improvement. And we look forward to engaging with a variety of people, including our advisory groups, to make sure that those emails are read in the future. Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Evans, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss and share information about the strengths and challenges this morning in communications in Montgomery County Public Schools. As Mr. Davis has outlined today, we are looking at communications from a system-wide level, a school level, and the class level. This is an important nexus of connection. The multiple audiences and the necessary role of information to fully support students, staff, and families is always paramount as we consider the work that we do in our office. It must be considered. Today I will briefly speak to some of the methods and tactics that we use. Many of them you know, but then we're going to hear directly from key stakeholders in our community about how this work occurs, including challenges at the end from a critical parent-focused advisory group. Between this part of the presentation and our closing comments, I am very appreciative of the inclusion of our colleagues who will share stories that demonstrate the importance of communications and connections with families that really serves to build community at the school level. Next slide, if we could, please. I'm sorry, stay here. So let's quickly go through the many current methods of engagement and communications we currently utilize or maintain. Family, staff, and student email, newsletters, and texts, although we heard some feedback just a moment ago, they do remain some of the most important ways that we start our conversations. These are very impactful methods as we see direct responses to surveys, to RSVPs for events, or to sign-ups for services. We utilize social media. This is done in English and Spanish, a truly vibrant and immediate area of communications. Community Navigator, pop-up shops, door knocking, and resource sharing with stakeholders to be able to utilize their communications channels. Our Ask MCPS phone and email support, which is in English and Spanish. We receive scores of emails and phone calls daily, and we have dedicated staff to support these functions. School and office webmaster support. We have nearly 1,500 webmasters, people assigned who are already employees to take care of whether it's a school website or an office website, and we provide support to them, and that's for 209 school and 100 office websites. Next slide, please. We work with a variety of community engagement and stakeholder advisory groups, the Family Engagement Advisory Team, the MCCPTA Communications Committee, which is a monthly meeting, and our COVID Advisory Communications Subcommittee, which is a weekly meeting. Responsive and proactive engagement with the news media, story placement, press releases, media availabilities. As the largest school system in Maryland and one of the best in the country, there is ongoing press interest in what we do. We produce printed materials in multiple languages, such as flyers and one-pagers and more. These have become the most effective takeaways that we leave with audiences either during public meetings or in the packages we hang on doors. For doors that don't answer, we leave materials for them as well. We provide interpretation services in person and through the language line. So far this year, more than 52,000 requests for interpretation services. 13,000 of those are in person, and most of those in person occurrences are folks who are already employees who have been tested to work as interpreters and are often employees. Next slide, please. Translation services as well for electronic and printed communications at all levels, nearly 4,000 documents just this year. And that's not 4,000 single pages, that's 4,000 often multi-page documents. It may not seem like an area of communication, but I certainly see it as such. People needing information. Our Maryland Public Information Act requests, 434 of those often complicated requests so far this year, up from 291 last year. We provide project planning and editorial support for the outreach of MCPS offices and schools. This cross-functional group meets monthly. It's, in fact, right after this meeting later today. We also provide principals, what we call the Principals Communications Update, which is every other Thursday and provides ready copy-paste material for them to use in their own school-based communications. Next slide. All of this we look at through the three following lenses. This approach is traditional tools, letters, email, free media, and more, digital organizing, social media, videos, text messaging, memes within our social media. It is well accepted in communications that people will readily remember what they see far more than what they hear or read. So the digital, the visual side of what we do is so very important, either as direct messaging or to add nuance to what we do. Pictures add nuance, for example. And then community organizing, in-person connections through community meetings, door to door, when we meet with our faith community, staff known as our community navigators and our door knockers, providing information in public spaces, pop-up shops, and more. But there really is more, and we must challenge ourselves to ensure our messaging is accessible and available to all in our community. And by all, we must not only concern ourselves who said they don't want to hear anymore, but what languages? Is it easily read by all? Are we meeting them face to face and addressing their concerns? Those are some of the challenges, and you'll hear more about that later.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I apologize. I just have a quick question. Can you describe what a pop-up shop is?
Certainly. So a little more than a year ago, as I came on to this role, we decided, and my previous supervisors decided, it was increasingly important, let me say, that we meet people where they are. And so pop-up shops, door knocking is real people going into the community to likely already established events, setting up an information table, but being ready to distribute materials and answer questions. That's the most important part. One of the things or rather pieces of feedback that we receive when we knock on doors especially, we're concerned. We're invading people's personal space. But that turned out not to be the case. People were so very appreciative, in most cases, to have a moment with somebody from the school system who can answer questions. So it's an ongoing and challenging thing to make sure that these folks who are doing this in their free time, although getting paid for it, to be ready to answer all of those questions. So we're continuing to improve those services. One last point about that, through about mid-July, we're pretty much booked every weekend with informational pop-up shops. It could be through a school health event, the Street Outreach Network Friday evening community gatherings that they have. We're partnering with the rec department. There's a Latino fair July 15th at Brookside Gardens that we're going to be at as well. With all of that, as I say, there is more to do. But for now, let me turn it over to one of my colleagues, Ms. Kara Trenkamp, to discuss a bit about how technology helps with all of this.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning. Next slide, please. So we all recognize coming out, during and coming out of the pandemic, just how important technology is in terms of targeting communication, making sure that we reach our students, our families, our stakeholders, and that we're able to really use technology in meaningful and purposeful ways. And so one of the charges that we've had in the technology office in partnership with my colleagues here at the table is, how can we use our current technologies, and if not our current technologies, then any enhancements or new technologies to either to purposely identify, target, and reach our different communities and different stakeholders with information and with resources. And so with that, just a couple of highlights that you see here on the slide. We've really been looking, one, at our Synergy platform. Our Synergy platform serves as the core for all of our student systems. There is a student-facing component, Student View. There's also a parent-facing component, Parent View, and an administrator component, Admin View. And one of the nice things about that is that those apps can be on your mobile phone, and all of that student information goes with you wherever you go. So if I'm a parent and I'm sitting here and I were to get some information about my student, I could see that right away. If I were an administrator at a school and I was out of the building for some reason, I could use my Admin View to be able to look up information in a timely fashion. And we've realized that direct access to information becomes very important. There are also some features in Synergy around Synergy Mail that serve as a way that teachers can push and administrators can push information to parents and to students. And we also know that that has come with some challenges. How then do parents and students collaborate back? How do they, return that message and communicate two ways, not just one way? And so we're working on some of those enhancements. The one nice thing that we've put in place this year around some of our Synergy communications is automatic translation. So we use translation services to automatically translate those emails into any language that is selected by the student or the parent as their preferred language for receiving communication. So that is automated and that is in place now. So as we continue the enhancements around that and continue to make improvements, we know that translation is very important to our families. We also heard in our Synergy Parent View in particular that, what resources are available to our parents in that portal. And so just knowing that our elementary families in particular traditionally did not have a parent portal. When we had Edline for many, many years, it was not at the elementary level. It was only at the secondary level. And so what is available not only for all levels, but specifically elementary, elementary teachers don't necessarily use the Gradebook and grades in the same way. So what information is valuable and important for parents, and how can we help with that access and opportunity to stay in touch regularly? Another enhancement that we have a new app being developed right now. We're working with a group of students that are building an app that allows immediate access to resources around bullying and mental health. And so there's been multiple planning meetings and sessions around what that app can be and how that can be immediately relevant to our students. And so instead of needing to go seek information or ask for information somewhere, they can have it readily available to them, and they're able to access those resources and access help from a one-stop shop from their own technology. And then the third area that I wanted to touch on is really looking at our how we better coordinate and target our communication. So we do have technologies, Blackboard, we use Connect Ed, we use, which has texting, it has emails, it has phone calls, and really looking at how we can better target our communities. So what are those messages? How can we target staff or groups of staff, subgroups? And how can we target our families and our students through that technology or additional enhancements through that central texting, email, and phone. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Chris for next steps.
So Ms. Trankamp, thank you, and I want to share deep appreciation for making the texting available. You know, in many ways, the phone is the common denominator for most folks. In fact, it's many ways that our families have access to the internet. And so we've seen a great response to our text. We were concerned that people might not appreciate it. That's been the opposite. People like getting texts, and depending upon who you talk to, they ask for more, and they prefer it that way. So with that, let me turn it back to Mr. Davis, who will introduce some of our guests today, who will share lots of great information.
Before we introduce the next group of speakers, I just wanted to make sure my colleagues didn't have any questions based on
Sure.
what they just heard from you. Mrs. Smodrowski?
So, very pleased to hear you say that about the text messaging. I feel like I had to push for a long time to get them on board. Are we able to target messages, like text messages, for example, to specific groups so that if we want to put, like, so for example, with the some of our magnet programs, let's just say, or whatever, target, like, I'm using a hypothetical example, like just second grade parents to say, or to communicate that applications for magnet programs, will be coming out this year, or so things that where I hear from people that they just didn't know, and I always say, we can have all the best programs in the world, but if people don't know about them, it's not really the same. So are we able to target some of these things so that specific people can get specific messages?
May I start? So, yes and no. And so let me explain. So our system will absolutely let us target via any message system it offers, as long as the sending group is there. So currently I can absolutely send to grade level, I can send to school level, I can send to preferred language, and Kara and I will work in the future to have far more distribution groups. And it's all database driven, right? So why shouldn't we be able to? But it is part of the planning that we must do for the future, right?
Absolutely. I think we have the capability of doing that. Our technologies can absolutely target, all of our technologies can. So whether that's Synergy or Connect Ed or any other platform that we're using, but our messaging is only as good as our data. And so that is really one of the areas that, as we migrated to Synergy, some of the challenges that we had were actually not on necessarily the Synergy platform side, but on the data cleanliness side, that, we were not able to connect with families because some of that legacy data that we had in OASIS for a really long time wasn't that good. And so it was very difficult to track down mom and dad, or to determine if that is mom and dad, or maybe it's grandma. And so it was really, there was a very large effort in cleaning up that data so that we could then better target our communication. And so one of those areas is texting. When we collect the phone, are we clear that there's a home phone, which we've traditionally collected, but now more and more people don't have home phones. They have their cell phone, and we traditionally hadn't collected that information. We don't collect cell phone information centrally from students, but perhaps we should, so it's those conversations that are ongoing. And so as we get better at cleaning our data and collecting that data, we can target anybody for any reason, for any communication, and that's our goal.
Yeah.
And I just want to add,
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, you go.
Thank you. And all of that, once we have the ability in a grand way, we have to be purposeful and planful to address all the issues that you began to bring up over there, in that, what editorially do we need to be addressing today? Because communications also needs to be very timely. I need the information today in order to make the right choice, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And I just, over the years and talking to people about, the thing that I like about text messaging is you can just put a little short message and then have that big, longer, whatever, whereas the email always comes in. Like the dad in your story, I just hit delete most of the time because I don't even open it a lot of times. But the text messages, I'm like, oh, let me click on this little link. And then I just kind of scan through if it's something that I want to read. But so in terms of not overloading people with communication, but making it more targeted and specific. I was curious if you asked the dad how he would have preferred to have gotten his information.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't share the follow-up to that story, and so thank you for asking. Yes, I did, and he was very much, he's a father of, I believe, 4, and so he was saying for him, timely, you mentioned timely, having opportunity to go to the school, he mentioned, which was, I thought, kind of ironic, knowing how busy he is with very active children, but he did appreciate the having the opportunity to have interaction face-to-face. And so what that said to me, although it's an opportunity, as you talked about, short maybe sound bites or clips in a text, he really did welcome the opportunity to have face-to-face interaction. So I think it's a varied approach based on his
Very
story.
cool. Last question. Do we still put flyers in the backpacks? Because I always felt like as a parent that, I know we only do the elementary school kids, but I mean, I know a lot of people are like, it's such a waste, but I always read it.
So it's not really directed from my office. I think I would ask our principal colleagues. Yes, we have a thumbs up from the audience, right? And to that extent, we likely need to, from Central, collaborate with our principal friends. What is needed? How can we support that effort?
Ms. Silvestri, do you have any questions?
Yes, sorry about that. So I guess my question is, and maybe this is what I'm thinking about right now, maybe you're going to cover it later, so if that's the case, I'll hold for my responses. As a parent, sample size 1, right, I always appreciated the principal's messages, because this is what I need to know for my kid to be successful this week or this month or this school year. There is a lot of information, and for busy parents, I just always really appreciated the clear, concise, this is what you need to know about what's happening at the school this week. So let's keep doing those messages. Everything we do, we have to make sure that it works for our underserved communities. And so whatever you're rolling out this year, go visit some school communities at your pop-ups, just get some feedback to make sure that it works for you. The strategic plan talks about two-way communication, right? And so I think we have a long way to go to do the two-way part. We do a lot of communicating, but we don't get as much feedback and engagement from our families back. And so just an emphasis on underserved. If it works for them, it will work for the majority of parents in our school system.
The very last bullet in this entire presentation, sometime from now, talks about usability study. Working with groups to say, here it is, does it work for you?
The other thing that I think is extremely critical is what tools do teachers have in order to communicate, in particular in other languages, with their families. The principal communication with the families is critical, but the teacher communication with the families is as important or more important. You've heard me tell this story before, but one of my first engagement activities as a parent in MCPS was I was the bilingual person for my elementary school. And they had me translating all the flyers, and it was a big waste of time because nobody was reading them. So the principal gave me, somehow, the numbers of all the people that spoke Spanish at our school, and I called every single one of them. And I said, what do you want translated? MCPS Central messages, principal messages, teacher messages. 99% said, I want to know what the teacher is saying so I can help my child. Not rocket science. And so I really push us to focus on what's going to help our parents help their children be successful. Communications are super important in everything that we do, but we are here for teaching and learning. And so we need to put more energy and more focus on what's going to help families help their kids be successful in our schools. Everything, right? Everything helps, but academic achievement, it needs to be emphasized as well. Lots of questions about parent view. I'm not clear what's improved. And I haven't quite figured out the difference between parent view, Canvas, and Synergy.
So parent view is, if we think back to legacy systems, we had Edline, and it was really a central communication place for, it was a repository for documents, so report cards, test scores, GT and magnet letters and communication would go there in the document library. It was a place where the grades in the gradebook automatically update nightly so that parents can check real time in their students' gradebook. They get a view into the gradebook to see what assignments might be missing or grades on the most recent assignments and tests. And they can look back through the school year on that and prior school years as well. Parent View serves as that purpose. It's also a hub for enrollment. So there is an enrollment feature there. So all of our new families, when they come in, our new kindergarten enrollment happening, it's been happening. They register for kindergarten, they get a student ID, and they're able to go in and add information for the emergency card and also make other critical selections. Scheduling as well is included in there. So that's where our students go in and select their courses for next school year. So it's a two-way communication in many ways, but we're continuing to build that out. Canvas, that is what I would say is new, and it is causing a little bit of confusion because it's something that parents never really had access to before. So I equate that to what happens in the classroom. So when we didn't have a lot of technology, we didn't know what happened in the classroom unless we went in to observe, right? And so how kids were, passing out assignments, working collaboratively on assignments, and then turning those assignments in, sometimes taking quizzes on a piece of paper and then putting them in the inbox. We didn't have access to that before technology. We would send our kids to school and they would do these things during class, and we would find out later from them. Canvas serves as that. It is the technology classroom management tool where teachers can put their handouts, they can put their presentations, they can put video of their own teaching. Many are recording their teaching still and putting it up there for kids for reteach and reassess. And now parents have access to that in a way that they didn't before. It's the equivalent of going through the student's binder and seeing all those handouts and things. So that is available. We do push messages through there. It is a collaborative space space for many students, not all. So some of our teachers have continued to use that space beyond the pandemic for discussion threads, for quizzes, for, continuing to post assignments there instead of, again, those pieces of paper that go into the binder. So that's the Canvas piece. Synergy is the overall hub, so Parent View is a piece of Synergy.
Thank you. I'll hold my questions with you.
Sure. So thank you for that part of this portion of the presentation. It was really helpful. And I do know that when we were doing virtual learning, some of our pop-ups were occurring in places where our families were going to get much needed services, particularly I remember seeing pictures on Twitter where we were at the East County Regional Center, right? So I do appreciate the efforts that we've made to try to reach out to our parents. I'm going to take it upon myself to stop saying the hard to reach parents, because I think it's just a matter of us just determining ways to go to the places where our parents are at, and sometimes they just cannot get to us. So I love that we, and I don't know if I want to say underserved, but just the parent, just reaching out to them in a different way and being more deliberate and more intentional. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about Parent View. I'm also a parent of one, a 10th grader, and I look at Parent View pretty often. Talk to me about what we're going to do or what we're trying to do in connecting Canvas and Parent View, because oftentimes there is a delay. There's not what you put in Canvas directly goes into Parent View. So are we making some enhancements there? That's one question. And the second one, talk a little bit how we're working with the schools, and maybe we'll hear this from the schools, about our parents who just have not been able to get on Parent View. Because I talk about Parent View, it's a really helpful tool, but there are many who are not on it because they don't know, and then there are many who can't get to it. And you talked about being able to pick different languages. Is that part of the setup? Like when you go to set up, because if I'm in here right now, I don't have an option to try to change the language. Maybe I want to see it in Spanish. I don't have that option. So just tell me if it's part of the initial setup. So I asked a lot of questions. The setup of trying to translate it, how do you do that? The connection between Parent View and Canvas, what are we doing there? And then how do we support our schools when they're not able to get their parents on Parent View or not connected?
So I'll start with the last part first. And I know that I believe Margarita is coming up a little bit later in the presentation, and we have partnered with her and the international office as one effort to help with our adoption of Parent View. So our adoption of Parent View district-wide right now is about 85% of our students have at least one parent who is active in Parent View. Now, active can be, I check it once a month. It could be that I go in and use it for enrollment in summer school, or enrollment in trying to update my emergency card. So the active use can be varied, but we do have about 85% adoption across our parents of students, which is good, but we want to be better. Our goal is 100% adoption. And so what we've done is first, partner with our schools and our offices as parents are enrolling in MCPS. That is the best way to get them. So they're new to MCPS, our kindergarten parents, our students that are transferring in, our students that are coming to us through the international office. How can we partner alongside those efforts to set up Parent View activation stations right there? And not only is it activating your account, but it's ensuring that the app and everything you need is set up on your phone. Once it's set up, you never need to set it up again. It's just one and done, which is fantastic. That's how I access my own students, and I think that helping parents get to that level, then you don't ever need to think about it again. The alerts just pop right up for you. You don't even have to go in and look for the alerts. They're right there for you. So helping them get set up as they come in the doors is one of our big efforts, and so we're partnering across those registration pieces. Back to school, so in August, when all of the the principal letters go out, welcome to the new school year in August. Make sure that you're activated, we're going to push our communication through these tools. We want to make sure you don't miss anything. So helping principals and schools with the timely information that can go right in their parent letters is really important. Helping students get set up on Student View. They seem to be pretty savvy, but helping them get set up so that they also don't miss those communications and can help their parents through that. We find that a lot of our students are the ones that are saying, hey, Mom and Dad, did you see this? This came through. So making sure that they're set up as well. Those first initial back to school nights, football games, picnics, all of the open houses, all of the different ways in which our families tend to come, maybe sometimes the only time they come during the school year. So really helping to be very strategic in driving up adoption for that. So that's how we're really trying to campaign and increase and improve our adoption. And partner with our schools in that way and offices. In terms of Parent View and Canvas and that connection, so we have set up where Canvas does sync back to our Synergy Gradebook. So Synergy Gradebook is the source of all grades. That is the gradebook that is configured from the district perspective with all of the grading and reporting policies. So when we say that homework can only count, up to 10%. That is set at a district level in our district-wide gradebook in Synergy. When we say that at our high school, where we've had different configurations, where we had a final exam historically that counted as a certain percent, or we had our quarterly assessments that counted as a certain percent, that's all configured from a district-wide perspective. Canvas has a gradebook. It has a grading feature, and teachers do use that to varying degrees for some assignments. So it's convenient for them because they can provide feedback on those assignments, and they can put a grade in Canvas that the student can see immediately. Sometimes teachers will say, I want the student to redo this before I actually submit it to the official gradebook, which is Synergy. So that Canvas space is sort of that work and rework process that maybe we wouldn't have seen in the past. It's that classroom piece where the teacher has handed back the paper and said, I'm not going to put this in the gradebook yet. I want you to go back and look at this again. You have a chance to make improvements. That's what the Canvas gradebook is. Once the teacher has finalized those grades in Canvas, they then have control to push those to the official gradebook. And so once they hit that button that says push, then that goes into the gradebook. And that's why there may be a mismatch, what you see in Parent View versus what you can see in Canvas, which you maybe didn't see before, is that work in progress. So what we're working with teachers on right now is a timely fashion of pushing that Canvas grade back into the official gradebook, because we are seeing that delay. Sometimes that delay is for good reason. Other times it's because they're still working through that grading and iterative process.
Thank you for that. And so my hope is that millions of people are watching and they're able to hear, because we do get plenty of correspondence from the community with questions. We have an ombuds now, and so I know he can get inundated with emails, maybe not about this particular topic, but we do get that feedback from parents about the delay, and we've heard from them at public testimony. So thank you for sharing that, and we hope that if there are parents watching, that they were able to hear that there's another step, and teachers are just kind of waiting a bit. And so I don't want to hold us up because we have great presenters coming. It's 10:43, and we're still with you, so we can move on to the next topic
Can
of
I ask
discussion.
one quick question? though?
Really quick.
Yeah.
Quick.
Are there alternatives to Parent View if for some reason somebody doesn't feel comfortable connecting in it, or are we just saying that's the only way?
So we do have alternatives for different work streams. So kindergarten enrollment, for example, or summer school registration. I just was working through a situation yesterday where we do have paper copies, and all of those paper copies are online, interactive PDFs. They're all translated into our core languages that MCPS translates, and our school parents are able to go into the schools or come into central office and submit via paper or work one-on-one with a counselor at the schools in order to submit those papers. So we do have other means for that as well.
Thank you. And then the last quick question in reference to something Ms. Silvestre mentioned about the two-way communication. When we send out like the emails, I know we've got Ask MCPS, but as a parent in the system for 15 some years, I never once thought to go on to ask a question like that. And I know like with nowadays with even doctor's appointments, they'll be like, hit Y for, to confirm or whatever. Are we looking at ways that parents can, or anyone can respond to some of these messages that come back and if they have a question, and then even if it's somebody contacts them directly afterwards or something? I just wasn't sure if at the bottom of the emails it was like, hit reply to ask a question or whatever.
So briefly, from my perspective, from my office, we are not that sophisticated yet. We do offer support in English and Spanish directly in phone and email, and many of our messages, our system-wide messages, are translated and choosable in those languages by a link. But technology will help us in the future.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because that is one of the synergy enhancements that's coming. So one of the biggest pieces of feedback we heard is people love this synergy mail because it's automatically translated into the language that you prefer to receive it in. But when families have gotten that mail, they cannot reply. They have to go into Synergy and reply through that messaging tool. And so we have been working with our vendor to make that enhancement. And so that is it's actually already been done. So I'd say it's on the roadmap, but that feature is coming soon in one of our new releases of Synergy, where that two-way communication will be enhanced dramatically, because parents will be able to hit reply without going in to the actual messaging platform to do that.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Cram?
If I may, just real quick, I think an important point not to be lost as we talk about this is parent empowerment, right? We've heard you mention this before. I think we're going to hear a little bit about parent empowerment from one of our presenters, but it's also the reason for one of the small pilot projects in my office through the Literacy Council of Montgomery County, in which not only are they providing language support free with materials to parents, but part of those classes is digital understanding, and they utilize our spaces and help them understand how to engage with them. And we got to find a way, as technology will become an increasing part of the communications equation, to make sure parents are empowered to use them.
That's great, thank you.
Very good.
All right, so I will keep us moving along for our millions in the audience, as you said, Ms. Evans. I'm excited to bring forward three of our principals who are the practitioners of this work at the school level, the boots on the ground, as we say, and I know several of them have their staff members here with them as well, so I'll ask them to introduce them as they come forward. But I just wanted to say two of them in particular have managed some emergency crisis situations this year, very public ones. And although they will speak to how they have leveraged communication, which is a critical tool, as you heard me say earlier, in reestablishing trust and engagement, I just want to be clear that these principals, really all three of them, have used communication effectively beyond and even before they were managing those crisis situations. So just excited to have them as exemplars, three of many in the system, exemplars in this work. And so I will ask them to come forward. We have Dr. Evans, who is principal of Magruder High School. We have Mr. Mullenholtz, who is principal of Ashburton Elementary School, as well as Dr. Harris, principal at Wheaton Woods. So I'll ask them to come forward, and we'll hear a little bit from them.
Yes, Mr. Harris, and then we'll bring your team up as we adjust at that time.
Well, good morning. I just want to say, it's just hearing, you're asking some really good questions. So I had to really kind of control myself. I wanted to raise my hand. So I got that one. Yeah, no, this really wasn't the time, part of the script, but it was very difficult, but the questions are really excellent. I just want to tell you that. So, but I do want to say thank you for the opportunity to talk about a very important subject, and communication for us at Magruder High School, and I believe it starts with me, and that's why I got that slide up there. I'm not trying to be any promotions, but I think it starts with me just as it does with every principal in looking at that, and I think that communication is the lifeline that allows us to nurture that home and school partnership. And it is one of the most important components of our work, and getting parents to participate in the education of their children. And this takes a number of resources in order to do this effectively. Next slide. So just want to start and mention a few things that really touches upon traditional methods and some of the more newer methods that we use, the technology, and you heard a great deal about that. And I'd just like to say that we are definitely on the right track in terms of looking at the challenges that we face every day that are so ever-changing, and meeting the needs. You heard earlier, I think Mr. Cram made the comment of meeting our population where they are. So this is really crucial in our work, and looking at global society, and it's a real importance because when we look at how our population has changed over the years, we're 40% Latinx. So that's a point of emphasis for us. So when we look at using the telephone, cell phones mostly, and using Blackboard and connect that, this is crucial to our work. We're looking at emails, but also some traditional things that we might take for granted for us. The electronic marquees, stationary marquees are really very, very helpful and useful in engaging not just our immediate school population, but also the more global population who may have an interest in our schools and our school system. So they'll see, at least get a snapshot of the kinds of things that are important to us that we're going to at least put out in front of our buildings. And certainly how we use our website. That's very, very crucial. That's a major lighthouse for what we're trying to communicate to our communities. And of course, the U.S. Mail Service is something that's really crucial, both in terms of not just the general kinds of things we send to parents to want to get them involved and just informed, but certainly to provide further explanation around things that happen that are irregular, that are a crisis situation in our schools. Next slide. So when we look at some of these reasons and the type of communication, I mentioned Blackboard and Connect Ed, and certainly Synergy Parent View. And one of the crucial things about that is to have a continuous education process for our parents. Now we back to school night and some of the other more important meetings and that we conduct for parents, that's time to educate them on how to effectively use this, as well as the importance of using this. So when we look at giving emergency messages, as we've had to do in a couple of situations, text messaging is something that we find that's really very, very important and very effective in reaching out, and timely, because as we all know, the phone, the cell phone has kind of taken over our society and created its own norms. So we've got to adapt and adjust to that. A weekly message, my weekly message, our weekly message, and later on in my presentation, there's, I hope we can access that link because you'll get a good example. And I think Ms. Slomdrowski, you mentioned something about being comprehensive and giving a message to parents. So that's, if we can open that. Then we have a daily digest, which is just our way of reaching out and in partnership with the PTSA. So important to have that partnership because it builds trust, okay, and familiarity. So that's extremely important. Now, our morning announcements, which kind of captures the theme of the day and some important things that parents can access and have that. And we also can mention message to particular groups. And you mentioned that, can we do that? And it's not as comprehensive as it will be, but it's useful now. And it's really important for us to be able to, especially now as we look at graduation. We have, getting to parents in terms of not just how we're going to facilitate the graduation, but making sure that their students are on target with a number of things they have to do. And making sure that the parents are aware that their students have obligations. And certain groups for us, like our Spanish-speaking population, which we really focus on, and sending that message in Spanish. And we learned through one of the meetings, recent meetings we have with that population on a Saturday morning, they want something specific. They don't want just a translation. They want something that reflects specifically with them, their community, their population, their families. And then something else we do, and in terms of when students are not doing the kinds of things that we expect them to do, when their performance does not equal their cognitive ability, there's D's and E's up there, but we reach out to them. Almost all of our academic departments reach out specifically to parents so that they can be even further involved at a crucial time. Next slide. So the types of communication, you heard about Canvas. It's a preferred method for all students. And this is really, once parents and students fully understand this is going to be a great vehicle for us to be able to extend and reach out with one hand and speak with one voice, which adds to the consistency and being able to do that, which is very, very important in this whole concept of communication, is being decisive, consistent, and thorough in that process. And so these technology vehicles allows us to do this. And as I mentioned earlier, the website. So, and one of the things that's really important is getting into the parent education, is having the help sessions, not just back to school night, but whenever, like in the last parent meeting we had on the Saturday morning last month with our Spanish-speaking population, we actually had Chromebooks where we could take them through this whole process and looking at how do I access this, how do I set up my account, how do I effectively use this, and just making them feel more comfortable with everything we have to do in school, and kind of putting them in a position where they can effectively feel that they're going to make a difference in the life of their children. How do they do that? You mentioned empowerment, all right? We empower them by educating them, by listening to them, by valuing what they have to say, and here again, meeting them where they are. That's why we had to have this on a Saturday morning. And then looking at our ESOL, ELD population, is that we have to have these opportunities for parents, and when they're available, we have to have some flexibility, because for them, survival is, in many cases, more important than what we do as educators and what we do as an academic institution. So having this on a Saturday morning or late in the evening is really very important, and it says to them, we value you as a partner, and what you have to say is equally as important than what we have to offer you in terms of information. And certainly as we get into mental health, is that making sure that we look at that as an opportunity to provide a service to them and not some way to hamper them or make them feel less included in the whole process. So the mental, the emotional health, social well-being is a huge part of our work. And once again, I'll say we have something left to do, but it doesn't say that we're not on the right track with this, because we are. And that's something we have to recognize in the midst of all the criticism that may come for those that really don't fully understand. Next slide. So if we could click on that, I don't know if you can click on the English version with that.
Sure, MCPS TV can, yeah, there they go. They're ready for you.
Okay. That's technology at its best. So this is a copy of a recent version of our weekly message, and this is to the community. We also have one that goes to the staff, which is slightly different because what goes here, I don't know if you can scroll down on that, but it really captures almost as much as we can. Some of it is immediate, some of it is long-term, but all of it is important and crucial to our work in nurturing a partnership. You know, we can't ask parents to be involved if we don't equip them with the vehicles, the information to be involved. So it looks like it's a lot of information there, and it is. It's sent out on a Sunday evening after people have settled down a little bit and had time to really digest this. But all of this information is crucial, and it's sent in English and Spanish so that we can address our major population and certainly to pull them in. And when we look at this, if we can get the largest portion of our population to be fully engaged and comfortable, then there's a greater likelihood that we're going to enhance our success as an academic institution. We're not ignoring any aspect. All members of our school community are important, equally important. But we have a differentiated process for meeting the needs of them. And so in kind of summing this up, I just want to mention a few of the challenges that we face, not only as a school, but a school system. Certainly timeliness, transparency, accuracy, opportunity, and getting parents acquainted with the use of our technology. And one of the biggest challenges that we face, and I think every school faces this, certainly at the secondary level, is social media. How can we effectively navigate around and through social media in efforts to provide the kind of integrity with communication and being able to provide a service so that we can maximize our work with children, and all of this requires trust and it requires patience. So we're here to serve as you are, and I think, you know, as a school system, we're doing a marvelous job in many ways. In other ways, there's something left to do, but, you know, as Dr. Trenkamp said, we're on it, we're focused on it, and, you know, we're reaching out. So I appreciate the work we do as a part of this, as an agent of the school system. If my children hadn't graduated, I would certainly appreciate it as much as a parent. But the schools have already done their work with my daughters and did a marvelous job without all the fancy technology. Marvelous. But this is what we've evolved in. So thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to continue on, if it's okay, Ms. Evans, with Mr. Mullenholz.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Mullenholz, and I'm the principal at Ashburton Elementary. Happy to be here with you today to talk about how we are strategically aligning our communications with the district to make sure that our parents are getting timely, accurate, and clear information. It very well aligns with Dr. McKnight's priorities around rebuilding trust with the community and engaging, which is a two-way street when it comes to working and communicating with our community. So at my school, we very much have aligned the way that we communicate with our families with the way that the system does as well. We are working really hard to limit those emails that are in the inbox. We want to make sure that if everything that we're doing, we're clearing the path for both district level communications, but most importantly for those teacher level communications that I'll speak to here shortly. We've come a long way in the last 2 years. I think more people are tuned in to you all than ever before, and certainly to Dr. McKnight and her predecessors, to really find out what information they need to know and how it impacts their child and their family at the school level. And so when we think about the way that we strategically communicate, we think about 3 buckets. And the first is our weekly ongoing communications, which I'll show some examples of here shortly. Those live out there on the internet for our parents to access. They go out once a week. I'm very jealous of Dr. Evans' formatting of his weekly message. I think I definitely need to up my game, make it a little bit prettier, but the important thing is the information is getting out. So we have a series of weekly or ongoing communications that our parents expect at a set time or around a set time, depending upon how my Sunday is going. But they get that message and it lives there for them. We work to condense the information so that I'm not sending out daily emails with information that they could get in one lump. But we also have a need, especially in the last 2 years, for real-time communications. And we've had to do some innovations around how we're getting information to our families around things like transportation, meals, things that are going on in the schoolhouse. And so I'll share some tools that we've developed at the local level as well. But then there's the as needed. And those types of resources, those immediate needs range from communications from the teacher through different platforms, the information that we would provide, again, when you all speak, the system moves. And so we take what you say and we work with our families around what it means at our school and what it looks like specifically at Ashburton. So those are as needed communications, and I'll talk a little bit about how we're building two-way engagement with our families on that. And then there's also in times of tragedy, as we did experience earlier this year, with tremendous support from the Office of Student Family Support and Engagement, the Office of Communications. But if anything, we were only successful in working with our families under those circumstances because of the other steps that we've taken in terms of streamlining and limiting communications. And so next slide. And so I kind of shared in the first slide, every message that leaves Ashburton in some way, shape, or form connects to a larger system message or something that's specifically going on in the schoolhouse. The challenge is there's a lot of that. Being the principal of the largest elementary school in MCPS, I too have an audience of millions, and my job is to figure out how to communicate with each of them individually. So we talk about those weekly communications. We do send a weekly Connect Ed message. We condense a lot of information into 3 specific sections. One is Ashburton News and Notes, the second is MCPS News and Notes, and the third is our Ashburton PTA News and Notes. And so parents can easily access this information from their phone. We utilize Blackboard Connect for this just because the formatting meets our needs. It is translated into English and in Spanish. Both of those exist as a Google Doc that's accessible to our parents. I find no greater joy on a Sunday than after having pressed sent on the Connect Ed, having that Spanish version of the community message open and seeing the anonymous alligator and the anonymous elephant appear on the screen, knowing that we are reaching parents in that way. Again, the challenge is streamlining just the increase in volume of communications, but this is where our information lives. And one of the steps that we've taken recently is to build out a community message archive or an index that our parents can easily search. This has been especially helpful for the families that join us mid-year or after the start of the school year because they now have access to all of the community messages from this school year, but we also have an archive from the last school year as well. So it is updated every Sunday as well. It contains both those Sunday messages, but also other messages that we may have to send, related to other changes that we see in the system. Next slide, please. So one of the most interesting things coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic is the demand for real-time communication. I share 2 examples here. Our families need to know where the buses are and what the kids are going to have for lunch. I don't believe at the beginning of the 2019-20 school year we were having conversations about supply chains and pandemics quite yet. But what we knew and needed to do was to make sure that our families had that real-time information. I'm the father of 2 elementary-age students. And I can tell you there is no bigger discussion on an evening during the week about what's for lunch tomorrow. So I do want to shout out our Department of Food and Nutrition Services staff, the unprecedented challenge that they faced this year, and also our transportation folks. So one of the things that we did, and again, these are not necessarily things that were invented at Ashburton, but were developed under the brilliance of my colleagues in the Walter Johnson cluster and across MCPS. We have our Ashburton Bus Board. So each afternoon, one of my secretaries who handles the announcements, as buses arrive on campus, the little yellow bus or the little pink bus or the little gray bus with the route number is moved from the not yet arrived column into the loading column so parents know that their children are boarding the bus. And then once that bus does depart from the school grounds, it's moved into the departed so they know approximately 10 to 15 minutes later to expect their children at the bus stop. As we face COVID-19 bus driver shortages, this has been extremely helpful so that our parents know. Many of them have said, I now know when to leave the house to go to the bus stop instead of waiting 35 minutes at the bus stop. One of the challenges that this addresses is that no parents are constantly monitoring their email while they're standing at the bus stop. So this was a real-time way for us to get critical information to parents. Similar to that, we have our weekly lunch menu, which is updated almost daily with any, depending upon what shows up on the truck. We start with what the MCPS menu looks like, and we make adjustments with our cafeteria manager as the week goes on, and our parents do access that pretty regularly. Just a couple of quick notes. We're big into analytics, and we want to know what the impact is. To date, we have had 2,303 views of our community message index, meaning that the people are going back to look for information. We've had 3,000 views, 3,000 views of the community index. The dining dashboard has the 2,300 views, and our most popular feature is our bus board, which has 4,000 views in just about 15 to 20 weeks of time. So there's a significant need, and we are finding that the community is accessing that. So next slide, please. And so then there's the as-needed information that comes from the school. A lot of this lives in the web. We hold community town halls, strategically timing them after very important board meetings about changes around COVID or other elements in MCPS, so that we can take system messages, elevate them, and align them to the work that's being done in our school. Essentially, we're answering the question, what does it look like at Ashburton? So we've engaged with our communities a very large number of times on an as-needed basis since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic specifically. If nothing else, I'll say that our engagement of and with the community has significantly increased during the time of the pandemic because there's a demand for this type of information. But we also recognize that our communications demonstrate who we are and what we value. We have used our communication strategy. We built out websites and sent out communications to highlight information around our work dealing with anti-bias, anti-racism, our work to support our LGBTQ plus students and their families, and making resources readily available to families to help them undergo conversations in the household around these topics, but also honoring that these students are in our building, and we are happy to be there for them and for their families. And so we've used a lot of the Google tools that are available to us to help with those types of communications. Next slide. And the last slide I'll say is that we do have a lot of the standard communications from the classroom. If we've successfully cleared the path at both the district and the principal office level, parents are getting the most important information, which is how's my child doing in school. Our teams send out monthly grade level newsletters so that there's an expectation of once a month they're getting information around curriculum and content. Our teachers continue to meet regularly with parents to discuss the progress of their children. We use the Synergy Gradebook feature to update grades regularly so that parents have access to that information as well. We use the Synergy contact log to streamline our customer service approach to make sure that if I'm having a conversation with a parent, the teacher has a record of what I spoke with and vice versa, so that if a parent calls me with a concern, I can look back and see exactly what transpired prior to that. And then we really focus on direct inboxing, making sure that the teacher and the parent have a direct connection so that information isn't overlooked as a general mass email, but it's really specific to the needs of their student. And so I'll just say to wrap up my remarks here that first I have a tremendous amount of gratitude for the teachers in my building, to my office staff for having to manage all of these communications, to the Office of Student and Family Support Engagement and the Office of Communication for their work to help us streamline things while elevating really important critical information to our families.
Thank you.
So thank you to Dr. Evans and Mr. Mullenholtz, and we'll continue on with Dr. Harris. Thank you.
So yeah, we're going to make a few changes at the table. Dr. Harris, if your team wants to come up, and thank you, Dr. Evans, and thank you, Mr. Mullenholtz. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We just need the real estate for this next section, and I think I'll move down. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. Thanks again for this time, Chair Evans, Vice President Silvestre, Ms. Mondrowski. I'd like Mr. Mullenholtz and Dr. Evans, as the principal, part of my job is to help create the vision for where we want to go as a school and to make sure it aligns with the school district priorities, and then bring my team along to be the backbone of what we do, to build the infrastructure for our communications and our family engagement. So that's why my team is here with me, because they are the folks who do the heavy lifting, and I get to be the face every now and again. So one of the pieces that we talk about, let me introduce my team. To my right is Mrs. Daisy Castro. She's our community school liaison, which we've been able to fund that position through the community schools grant that we have here through the system. We're grateful for that. And this is our principal intern, Miss Liz Collins. She is a rising star in MCPS. And this is Miss Helen Winder. She's our parent community coordinator, and we were able to fund her position through our Title I funds. And so these ladies are a part of the infrastructure that helps our team grow or go, and we are ready to talk to you about the things we do in terms of engagement with our families. I know we're here talking a lot about communications, and for us, communications is a means to an end, so it's about engagement. And sometimes we get caught up with thinking that engagement is about us talking to parents or even parents talking to us, right? So that's a part of engagement, but that's the very minimal level. So for us, it's about how our families help us to create not only the programming that we use, but the priorities that we establish that dictate what programs that we run. Because all the resources we use, time or the funds, those are value judgments. And we need our families to help us to establish those values. So that's why we do a lot more listening than we do speaking, and a lot more partnering than we do solo work. And our team is going to talk a little bit about that. Next slide, please.
So good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and speak on behalf of the work we do as a collective school and community school. And so I have the pleasure of talking about our core beliefs. I'm going to reference Simon Sinek. He's a leadership icon. He's one of my go-tos. He doesn't know me, but I know him well. And so he oftentimes talks about people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And when I think of our why is underscored by our beliefs. And so oftentimes when we think about what do we really believe about those we serve, our vision for who we serve, and how we serve them, we have to unpack what we believe. And so we serve, as a Title I school, we serve a largely marginalized population. Oftentimes, we have to have a large vision and incorporate them into that vision. It's not just our vision, it's breathing life into their vision for their children. And so I'm going to visit some of our core beliefs. We see our families as essential partners in our work. So we don't do the work solo. So while we sit here as a team, we expand that team to include our families. And many of our families are very multi-generational. And so we oftentimes, at the curb, see various family members dropping off their children. We seize that moment to have curbside chats. That's where we get that authentic curbside street data. Family engagement is a two-way phenomenon. So we're training ourselves to listen more than to position ourselves to deliver. And in our listening, we want to hear their heart in their words. That means, I call it micro movements. We pay attention to our body. We make sure we're not tense because we're paying attention to the bell. We relax ourselves. We lean in. We shake our head. We smile. And then we respond. We believe that students achieve at higher levels when their and their families' basic needs are met. And so I go back to the COVID experience when it first hit us March 13th. And I'm going to call to my left Helen Winder, who was one of my street warriors. And we knocked on doors. And we wondered why, in our beginning work, the families didn't always come to the door. And we had to unpack that. If our belief is really to have a partnership with our families, why aren't they opening the door? And we looked at ourselves and we looked official. And so we had to take off
our name tags. We made sure that when we knocked on doors one person and the other person would stay back at the curb. We made sure that we wore Wheaton Woods paraphernalia so they knew we were from the school, and we also made sure that we smiled. That was essential. So then, while we arrived with a message, our first question was, how are we doing? How are you doing, and how can we help you? And that opened the door for communication. When we talk about achieving at higher levels, we can't do it minus the family. So while we might be the experts in the building, our families are experts in the home. And so we want to combine those efforts to make sure that we really have a blended opportunity of greater impact. I'm going to speak to our data. And so our data informs our impact. And so while our beliefs inform our mission, our data measures our impact. And when I think of, I'm going to speak specifically to a subgroup of students, for our GT students in the school we serve, it's 8%. That's 40 students out of 525. If we really believe in our students' potential, then that data says we've got to shift what we're doing because 40 students is not enough. What can we do differently? That means we need our families to buy into what is your vision for your child? Do you see their potential? And are you willing to be a partner with us? Because we're willing to be a partner with you. Trusting relationships is at the core. And so oftentimes in that honest communication, many of our families have said they don't trust us. Some of that's historical, but we appreciate their honest voice. So now we have to unpack, why don't they trust us? What have we done unintentionally that has caused them not to trust us? And how do we take those messages back to our broader staff? Because not all the time are they saying that to the teaching staff. They might say it to us because we're at the curb every morning, we're at the curb every afternoon, we're in that community, we're making ourselves available. So trusting relationships have to be built. But to build that, we have to share our vulnerabilities. I'm a mom to one son by blood, 2 other boys by circumstance, so I have 3 boys. And when I think of their experience in MCPS, I have to think about, was I as forthcoming with their teachers as I want my families to be forthcoming with us? Maybe not. I wonder why. And so we talk about sharing vulnerabilities. And when we talk about sharing our vulnerabilities, it makes families open up and say, wow, they expose themselves. That's pretty brave. Perhaps I can do the same. Lastly, our impact is greater when we support the whole child and embrace the entire community. And so, while previously we may have seen school as a one-way service center, it's really a reciprocal service center. And so there's a lot coming in, there's a lot going out. And so when we talk about servicing the whole child and embracing the entire community, who are the partners in the community that we can partner with? So beyond the families, are there other organizations that we can partner with? And how can we bring them in to serve the families and their needs? The needs are great, but if we are not responding to the needs, then we are being negligent for the beliefs that we say we operate on. Next slide. So previous challenges. So I'm going to talk about a finite focus versus infinite focus. So our finite focus previously was, we'll do what we do with the people we have. But our data told us it wasn't working. So that means we had to go from a finite focus to an infinite focus. That means we had to be willing to challenge ourselves and talk about, what are we not doing? This is what we're doing. but this is the outcome, and this is the data. What do we need to change? So we had limited Spanish-speaking staff to a largely Spanish-speaking community. And while many of our staff are familiar with the language line, we use that frequently, some of our staff are fluent in Spanish, but when you pull a staff member away from the role that they fill, then a portion of our community is not being served. However, we understand that there's a fingertip sensitivity in communication. And so while we use language line, there's nothing better than direct influence with sensitive wording when you're talking to families, and then they're willing to talk to us more because we're using authentic language to communicate. Talking at families. So to be an effective listening leader, we have to position ourselves, I have to position myself to make sure I'm hearing what they're saying. So I'm not thinking about what I'm going to respond with. I'm thinking about what are they saying, finding the heart in their words, and then calling in my heart, this is the action I need to pivot on. So we're no longer talking at families. Now we're asking families, what do you want us to know? What is it you need? And how can we serve you? Narrow partnership and programming focus. And so it is just what it says. We hadn't grown beyond our walls. And so I think of schools with open walls, with no walls. I see our building as that. So while the structure stands, what's our influence beyond the walls, and what's the influence of the traffic coming in, those who walk their kids to school, the children who bike. Some of our families come from the back of our building, they come across the field, they come to the front of the building, and they say things like, can I have lunch with my child? Absolutely, come on in. That's essential. So when we have those increased opportunities of communication, it grows our programming, because then they say, our families walk away and say, I had a great conversation with Ms. Castro, Ms. Winder. They told me that. I had a great conversation with Ms. Collins. She welcomed me into the building by saying that. Dr. Harris informed me, go ahead and walk your child down to the class. It's no problem. That increases our programming. That increases our partnership. Last, considering past traumas and lived experience. So this is my wheelhouse. So as we try to grow as a school for trauma-informed practices and a trauma-informed setting, that means fingertip sensitivity has to be our, kind of like our guiding focus. Most families that we serve have either incurred a large trauma or a small trauma. The amount of adverse childhood experiences our parents have experienced and then their children have experienced means we have to grow as informed servants of the community, honoring their lived experiences. And so we do some focus work on racial trauma. That means building the capacity of our staff, building the capacity of our support staff, building the capacity of Dr. Harris and myself, so that when we have these listening sessions, when we have staff conversation opportunities, we're able to go into that territory and say, I'm listening. What do you want me to know? And oftentimes the lived experiences of those we serve come with trauma. And so that safety and trust factor, that vulnerability factor, those are all key pieces to how we communicate. Recognizing that, and recognizing that if they shut down or if they're standoffish, it may be us, but it may be other histories that they've lived with and lived through. Next slide.
So to support those challenges, we have expanded our partnerships with Action in Montgomery, We've had bilingual play date listening sessions to build relationships and find out what barriers are keeping our families from thriving. We've also done one-on-one relational listening sessions where we listen to our family's stories. We've also shared our stories. We've listened to dreams and hopes for their students and also for themselves. AIM has helped us partner with the Housing Partnership, Inc. to offer an affordable housing workshop for our families. They are also using our community needs to drive the issues agendas at the Candidates Forum, which will be occurring at Wheaton Woods on June 4th. We've also partnered with EveryMind. They offer the following services for adults. They offer driving classes, art and crafts workshops to support mental health, baking classes, computer classes, CPR courses, daycare and food safety licensing courses, English classes, and trauma support for caregivers. For our students, they offer art club, Girls on the Run, ballet, STEM and homework club, Kids for Kids Fund, cooking club, and they also offer spring break and summer camp. The Children Opportunity Fund sponsors the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. They sponsor our after-school programming. Our family said that they wanted soccer club, paint club, and Spanish club. They also provide transportation for those after-school programs when we don't have MCPS providing those. Through the Community Schools Grant, we have, as a community school, we have a full-time community school liaison and also a full-time nurse. We collaborate with other community schools, and we're able to use the funds to support our families with childcare for after school this summer. Also to provide engaging activities to help caregivers become their child's first teacher. We were able to purchase books, incentives, and materials for a community garden and dry foods for a pantry. Next slide, please.
And so you heard from Ms. Collins and Ms. Castro about first that narrow focus in programming that we had, where it was around academic stuff. So we had a tutoring group, we had a math group. Through our Title I Extended Day program, we had some coding lightly. And now we do almost everything. And the reason why we're talking about this communication subcommittee is because we didn't know we had to do that until we asked. And we didn't know how to ask correctly until we had a partner that could help us with that. And that's what Action in Montgomery has done with us. And the board has underwritten Action in Montgomery's support of us. So this has helped us to grow our values, it's helped us to grow our partnership, it's helped us to grow our impact in the community. And a couple of different ways, Ms. Castro named a whole bunch of things that they help us do. But they helped us to really focus on how we as the leadership can support a vision or help to create a vision that is more inclusive of our families as partners or as members of our decision-making team. So oftentimes we talk about co-creation or co-implementation or co-evaluation. Those things are important often. But the co-piece says that this is a separate, two separate beings that are working together on a project. And for us, we try to look at our families and the rest of the community as all of us. So it's not a co-creating, it's just a we. And that is what Action in Montgomery has helped us to do. So sitting with us as a pair, sitting with me one-on-one, taking me or including us in the broader leadership ecosystem for activism in the region. So we're able to talk with other folks about how they're listening to folks and what they're gaining. We used to do things that were focused on history and tradition and things we've always done. Oh, we need to provide food because our families are poor. Oh, our families are immigrants, so we need to have parenting classes. Those are deficits that we are saying that our families must have, and we have the magic bullet to fix that. Another way of thinking is to say that we all have deficits that we can help each other fill. And AIM has helped us with that through our conversations. So now the way we operate, our families said they needed more childcare. So we work with Children's Opportunity Fund, like Ms. Castro said, till we were one of the first equity hubs. Our families said we need more support for our students before they get to school. So we work with the Children's Opportunity Fund to do the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which provides books to children from birth to 5 before they get to us. They said we need help with housing. Well, we couldn't do that exactly, but what we can do is we can bring everyone who's running for county council this year to our school on June 4th, and you tell them. Right? So those are the things that this partner has helped us to be able to do, so we are really excited about where we go moving forward. Next slide, please.
So we've learned how to empower our community. We've solicited a greater voice through surveys. We've surveyed our students, families, and staff to find out what are their community needs. We've done playdate listening sessions, had conversations with families during arrival and dismissal. We've also met them at the bus stop in the neighborhood. We've also done monthly bilingual parent coffees and PTA meetings. We are asking about community needs, checking in more often and in more formats such as Class Dojo, weekly emails on Saturday evenings. We're using social media such as Facebook and Twitter, and we are communicating in multiple languages. So we're building relationships as well as gaining information. We've hired more Spanish-speaking staff. Our attendance secretary, our parent community coordinator, and community school liaison speak Spanish. We've also formed a community connections team that meets weekly to strengthen and streamline our work with families and other partners. So our holistic focus is based on student, family, and staff input. We know that our families prefer to register through paper flyers, pay by cash. They like personal invitations, such as phone calls, text messages. So this information allows us to advocate for our families based on what works for them.
Next slide, please.
Ms. Collins spoke about the power of being vulnerable. And we saw time and time again in our listening sessions that parents and caregivers are willing to share when they are asked sincerely and non-judgmentally about what the challenges are that their families are facing. We've heard about a lack of affordable childcare that frustrates our parents, especially mothers, and keeps them from reaching their full potential, whether regarding their own education or as economic partners in their households. Lack of affordable childcare also impacts the ability of families to get their children to school on time and affects attendance. During listening sessions, parents also shared their life stories and experiences, such as lack of education or disrupted education, and feeling unable to help their children with school because of that and because of their limited English proficiency. We also learned that transition points in families' educational journeys are critical. These are moments such as transitioning from pre-K and Head Start, transitioning from daycare, transitioning to kindergarten, or transitioning to a new school year, or to a new school mid-year. We have many international arrivals. Or students that are graduating from elementary school and moving on to middle school. These moments are highly emotionally charged, and as school staff, we can take advantage of these opportunities to make families feel welcomed and part of our community. But conversely, if we don't communicate clearly, or if we aren't as sensitive as we could be, there's a potential for families to feel unwelcome, left out, or uncared for. We must remain mindful of families as they attain different milestones in their students' educational journeys, and strive to react in ways that continue to include, welcome, and value our families' participation in the life of the school. We also learned that parents do want to build community, not only with the school and school staff, but with other families as well. They want their children to form friendships with their classmates, and they want to get to know other parents. Especially coming out of 2 years of social isolation due to COVID, I think we're all looking to build that sense of shared community. We've had requests already for play dates for children entering kindergarten next year, and we look forward to fostering these relationships among our families. Something else that we've learned is that it's so beneficial for school staff to get out into the community, whether it's walking to do home visits and chatting with parents that we meet along the way, spending time at the local playground, driving through the neighborhood in a Valentine's Day car parade, putting in appearances at PTA events and fundraiser events at local restaurants. Ms. Collins mentioned the idea of being a school without walls. We've learned that the more open a school is to the surrounding community, the stronger the relationships we can form with our students and their caregivers. Next slide, please. I have to preface this slide with saying that I'm truly appreciative of all the hard work that everyone is putting in on the technology and the communication side. But we are going to have to talk about some of our challenges. The biggest one that we face is technology. The access to hardware is there. Most of our parents and caregivers do have smartphones. All of our students have access to Chromebooks that they can bring home. But the technology competence and the confidence is missing. So we can help parents activate their parent view accounts or help them with other discrete tasks that they need to accomplish. But when they're confronted with links, online information, registrations that need to be done with a Google form, QR codes, things like that, many of our families are not able to navigate those things. Many families may interact with social media, but do not check email regularly. Some families are used to using Class Dojo with one teacher one year, and then the next year's teacher uses Remind, or uses text messages, or doesn't use either of those and only sends out email, and they're confused moving from one platform to the other. Asking our parents to complete the online child abuse and neglect training so that they can volunteer is a process made daunting when many of our caregivers are unfamiliar with how to click from one section of the module to the other. As MCPS moves towards having more information online, our concern is that many of our families are being left out. Another continued challenge is the complexity in the way information is presented. This issue shows up in several different ways. For instance, our parents often find it difficult to help their children despite being highly invested in their success, simply because they're unfamiliar with how the information is being taught. Even those of us that grew up in MCPS know that Eureka Math is completely different from how we learned it growing up. Complexity of presentation can also be a barrier for our families in other ways. For a large number of our caregivers, having to fill out an application for child care vouchers or even the application for our on-site child care provider can be intimidating to the point of preventing them from accessing necessary services. This is an issue even when forms exist in languages other than English, which is another major challenge. And I know it's a monumental task of translating so many documents into other languages, but while the language line is helpful, having those documents translated is crucial in aiding accessibility and making communication more effective. Another issue that we face is attendance. So we struggle with emphasizing to our parents that getting their children to school on time every day is of utmost importance to their learning and success in school. So we, as Ms. Collins mentioned, we do the curbside chats. We encourage teacher outreach. We meet with our student well-being team every other week, and attendance is always a priority. So a lot of our communication, both within the school and then to the parents, focuses around attendance. And finally, the last challenge I'll mention today has to do with the inclusivity of our school climate, and I think this will always be a work in progress. While we've made great strides in hiring more bilingual staff and listening more to what our families have to say, many caregivers still don't believe us when we say we need them and want them on our instructional leadership team, our family involvement committee, on interview panels, etc. We've made progress having families share their opinions during listening sessions and on surveys, but we're still working on convincing all of our families that we want their input on what happens at school. Thank you.
So thank you again to our Wheaton Woods, to Dr. Harris, and also to our Wheaton Woods staff members, as well as to, of course, to Mr. Mullenholtz and to Dr. Evans for giving us a view from the school level. We did want to open it up for discussion, Ms. Evans, but we also know that we have our Family Engagement Advisory team that we're sure you want to hear from as well. So just wanted to ask, and moving forward, how you'd like to proceed.
Sure. I'll just start off by saying thank you all for coming, and Ms. Winder, never apologize for letting us know what we need to provide in order to make your job easier, to help our students and the adults in the building. So I really do appreciate hearing from our principals. We're trying to be more intentional in our committee as we have discussions, instead of hearing it from high-level staff, to actually hear it from the people who are on the ground doing the work. It makes a tremendous difference. And we heard from Dr. Evans, what he's doing. You all are doing wonderful things. I'll just tell you, and Dr. Harris, you did great by bringing all of your staff. And when you're door knocking, if you're taking Ms. Collins, my goodness, you almost brought me to tears. I mean, you were very moving, and I appreciated how you gave us a glimpse into how you are actually going about this work. And I remember you coming to the board table talking about, you know, I got to be able to engage my families, and this is what will be helpful to not only to myself as the leader in the school, but to our community. So I do appreciate that. I know that all of our principals are reaching out to their directors or whomever to, you know, let them know what additional things you need in order to better do your job. So continue to do that, right? We need and want you to be able to put your best foot forward, and you can do that by being honest. We're trying to really be transparent in our communication, and also in saying we want you to come here to this space, whether it's at a committee meeting or the board table, to be vulnerable, to tell us what the challenges are. We can't help you if we don't know. And I feel like you all communicated very effectively what the challenges are. So I took notes. I have this presentation. Mr. Cram, you heard, and we'll do more. We'll figure out what we need to do to better reach our families around technology. I heard you talk about attendance and just navigating the system with our forms and everything. So I'll ask my colleagues if you have questions. And I'll just say, I'll be upfront, disclaimer, when we were planning this committee meeting, we knew it was going to go over because we were going to have so many dynamic speakers coming to tell the story. And so I know we're behind time. We want to be respectful of everyone, but this is really good conversation that I think is important for our community to hear. And I know that we have principals here that have to get back to their buildings, but just know you're appreciated in all that you do, all that you've done, all that you will do, and this has just been so helpful. It's been so helpful, and I think our community needs to hear what the work is, what's happening, what it looks like, and there's so much intentionality, and I know that we get complaints around the communication, it's not enough, it's too much. We're going to figure it out, but I hope that you all were able to provide to our community what you're doing, right? This was really good. This was really good. And so I appreciate you and my colleagues. I'll let them ask questions.
I have several questions, but in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of narrow it down to one that's the most important for me. First, I too want to say thank you to all of you, everybody who's come and shared. I'm blown away by the intentionality that each of you explained in what you're doing. And I'm extremely grateful to all of the principals, here or not here, for hearing what our families are saying. I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, I took a tour of a lower income housing area and was asking the woman who kind of oversees the development, how she communicates with her people. And she said text messages. Most of her families don't, if they have access to emails, it's not like where it pops up. And at that point, I turned off my notifications for my emails. I go on my email once a day, generally, either in the morning or at night, so I don't get timely information unless people hear what I say, this is how I need to receive it, and then they follow up with it. So I really love that you all talked so much about getting feedback from your families and then actually implementing that. But one thing, going back to the bottom line is about what we can do in terms of teaching and learning and helping our students. Having had 2 children who took completely separate pathways, elementary, middle, and high school, it was very interesting because you get to see what some schools do and what some schools don't do. And one of the things that one of the schools did was this teachers text messaging. And I don't know if it's part of Synergy now because my kids aren't here anymore, but I used to get notifications from the teachers, there's a test tomorrow from, in this class on chapters X, Y, and Z. And so when my daughter would be like, I'm going to go do this, I'll be like, hey, have you studied for your test though? And she'd be like, how do you know? And I'm like, ha-ha, I'm on it. But I know that everybody doesn't do that. How are we working with our teachers to ensure that they have timely and the ability to connect with families that doesn't take a ton of their time or, just keeps them informed without expecting them to have to read through their emails or contact them to say what's going on, or even look on the parent view, which is to my point of alternative things that we do instead of just parent view. Not sure if I'm wording it right, but I think you all know what I mean.
I don't know if we're bringing on Dr. Evans or Mr. Mullenholtz to be a part of the conversation. But for us, we're still figuring that out. So our students, some of our teachers, our staff members, not just our teachers, but our paraeducators, our ESOL teachers, everyone. Some of them their families have direct access to them through text messages. But most of our staff have used either the Remind app or Class Dojo, which helps them talk to families in a bilingual fashion or multilingual fashion in real time. So they'll be, hey, Susie's doing really well today. Amir is working on this thing, that sort of thing. Or we have a trip 2 weeks we need to slip, or we have the test coming up. So those things are happening there. But like Ms. Winder said, because we haven't streamlined it, because we don't know which one is working better just yet, so I haven't mandated as a staff that this is the one we use because our data doesn't support one over the other just yet. But that's where we're trying to go, where it's streamlined, so when our families come in, they lock into that ecosystem in kindergarten and pre-kindergarten, and we go forward.
Great explanation of why you haven't chose one. I appreciate that.
Exactly.
And
the confusion of when there's multiple.
But yes, and before I allow Ms. Silvestri to ask her question, I wanted to say, Mr. Mullenholtz, we probably need to call you. I feel like you created a bus app that we don't know anything about. I did want to mention that.
Yeah.
And Dr. Evans, I love seeing your picture on your newsletter, but it was very detailed, right? And I appreciate the comments that you made about how you inform your community, particularly during the marquee. When I ride past schools, I'm always looking to see what that says. And so you're right, it informs our community. That's another mode of communication. Mm-hmm. And just wanted to just acknowledge you. I hadn't seen you since the incident at Magruder, but just to thank you for your leadership and how you handled everything and continue to handle what's going on at your high school. And I know many of our principals are doing some of the same things, but different things happen in different communities, and it's really about how you respond, right?
Well, let me just say this, and I appreciate hearing that, but I think it really comes down to, and I've heard this a lot, but it really is about the team. You know, there's no way I could do what needed to be done without those people that I've entrusted to play certain roles in the school, and they did a marvelous job. And so it really is about the team. It's about my staff that does this work, and about the people that came out to support us, like Mr. Davis and Mr. Cram, both of whom were there. And I thought I was going to have to give Mr. Davis an office, but I would never refuse the service. So I don't want to discount the work that we do with the people that are in place. So it's, a lot of it's, not most of it's about my team and about the work we do as a county, as a school system, to make sure that we do the work. So in those difficult situations, you know, we rely on all of our resources, whether it's coming from my director or my associate superintendent, and we survived. And you know, our student is as a matter of fact, he came to school yesterday just to say hi.
great.
So we're in a good place. So thank you.
Thank you. Right. So, and thank you for acknowledging your team, because we know it's not just you, but it's different when you hear and give that acknowledgement. And we see your team, Dr. Harris, and thank you for bringing them and all the work that you all have done. Ms. Silvestri, do you have any questions?
You know, lots of wonderful work that you've presented here today. I wanted to ask, what's working? What would you say if a principal could only do one thing that's going to help academic achievement? Again, I bring us back to teaching and learning, right? We are doing a lot more for families nowadays than ever before. Schools are doing social emotional, schools are doing health, schools are doing basic services, but we're also here for teaching and learning and academic achievement, and we need to work very hard to move the needle especially for our low-income students all over the county. So if you were to advise a new principal coming to MCPS, what is a strategy in communication or engagement with families that you think makes the biggest difference for academic achievement? Whoever wants to go first, or you want to think about it.
I'm good. I think about this a lot. So for us, it is for me, I should say, for me, it is the creation of more home-like schools and more school-like homes. And you get there through listening. So that's it. So we do, through Action Montgomery, we've learned how to do listening campaigns. Before, we were talking at our families, and we had a really narrow focus about how we were trying to support. And we didn't realize it, but it was a deficit view. And as we listened, we saw the strengths that our families had. Not only could they bring to our individual teachers, but that they could bring to our building. And so it was really about listening. That's the piece. So if you're thinking about if a person is thinking, what can I do to help move my school forward in terms of achievement and well-being relative to communication, it's the listening aspect and making that a structured part of what you do.
So I'd agree with that, and then say that I think in many ways over the last 2 years, even those of us that have been doing it a while have very much felt like new principals, because there's been a tremendous shift in the role. But we know that primarily principals serve as the instructional leader of the building. So if we're to move the needle on teaching and learning, it means that we need to continue to invest as a system in the professional development for principals, because then that leads to the communication with families so that they understand exactly what's happening in the building academically, so that they understand with great depth the curriculum, and that they're able actually to parse out some of the myths that are floating around about a lot of the work that's being done in curriculum and instruction. So I think any new principal is going to come in is going to be overwhelmed by the operational side, and I would say that the heavier task is to make sure that they're engaging with the academics, the instruction, the curriculum work, really being in classrooms, really getting their own professional development done so that they can effectively communicate with parents. If they don't know what they're communicating about, or they don't understand with great depth the product that they're trying to communicate around, I think that's where you're going to see the loss and not necessarily being able to move that needle.
I too would agree with all of that, but I think the key component for me and for us is that we have to fully understand where the challenge is. And I think the challenge is in the street, it's in the communities, it's in our homes. can't divorce ourselves from acknowledging this, because otherwise we're going to be clouded by, our efforts are going to be clouded by, misinterpretation, misperceptions. So we have to just be real and be in touch with those things, and reaching out to families is going to be critical. It's going to be critical, and we have to galvanize our resources. We are as rich, and not just in terms of social economics, but in terms of resources and human resources, as any county in this country. It's how we use those resources. How do we access and value what people have to say and do? And that starts with the communities. And in terms of schools, it starts with the principal leaders and those that are crucial to that. So I think we have to really get in touch with the challenges we face are very different than 5 years. And if we don't do that, then we're not going to be nearly as effective at educating children as we'd like to be, or as we think we are, because those challenges that are in the community, not just the violent challenges, but the social, emotional challenges that children face every day at every level, elementary, middle, and high school. How can we get in touch with that? How can we empower parents and engage them in a kind of valued partnership that's going to put us not only in a position to win at education, but it's going to put our children in a position to win at life? So we have to fully understand what we're dealing with and have a very courageous approach to dealing with that, very transparent approach. So it's a culmination of a lot of things, and it includes almost everything. But how well we do that and use that is what's going to really inform our success.
Very good.
Hey, I just add really quickly too. I think in listening to Lee and Greg and thinking about what my team is talking about here, I think also I'd ask folks, what's the team that you're creating? What teams are you creating to address some of the needs, or to free up some of the time that you can spend away from the operational side of things to support what Greg was talking about? So I think, or Mr. Mullenholtz, I'm sorry, Dr. Evans. But that, I think that also is a part of it. So if we have a strong team that we help to develop, then that frees us up to do some other things, get into the community and address that, or instructional side of things.
Very good.
If I
Mr.
could,
Grant,
yeah, thank you. To Mr. Mullenholtz's point, actually, the point of all three of our principals, I know we all know this, but our school leaders, especially our principals, those are the credible communicators. This is where our families turn to. And another thought comes to mind, we're beginning a 12 and 13-year relationship with our families. And so communication needs to be fostered, continued. It's nuanced, it's complex, it's difficult, and so professional development, I think, is key.
Sure, and I appreciate that you're having curbside chats, you're doing real-time communication, and that you're doing the daily, often communication with families, because that does help in the instance where there's something out on social media that is some myth or is not correct, that constant communication with our parents, being directly in front of them, talking to them, will kind of help to debug or take away some of those myths that we're hearing. So I do appreciate all that you are doing.
I still have a question.
You have another question? Sure,
This
go
one,
ahead.
that's on.
Yep, go ahead.
For Mr. Mullen, in reference to the bus thing, you mentioned that which by the way, love it. You mentioned that you'd done so that parents don't have to be continually checking their emails while they're saying, how do you get that to them? I mean, how do you do the real-time notification to them?
Yeah, so I'll say that after this meeting, I think I'm going to be filing a patent.
Yeah.
But again,
Highly recommend it.
It's not an idea that originated at Ashburton. There's some other schools that are using it across the county. So essentially, it's a Google Doc. It's a live document, and one of my secretaries who handles all of our bus dismissals, announcements, things like that, she sequestered it to a conference room, is up on her computer on a laptop, and essentially as we hear it on the radio, she moves it across, and in doing so, when parents have it open on their phone, it does the same. There's no need to refresh. It's completely live, so they can actually see it in real time.
So it's an app that you teach families how to use?
It's a Google Doc. So it's a one-click link. So as we update it, it appears updated to them.
Okay, I guess you explained to them how to get that.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So we do send it out.
I don't
It's
know.
regularly sent out to the community. They have it, as a direct link. It's posted on our website. It's also at the top of our Sunday community message. So those real-time resources are right there, available on their phone.
Yeah.
Again, so it clears out and cuts down on communications through text message, email, and others. It gives them, they can have it open at the bus stop and see what's going on.
Okay, I was just curious how we were doing real-time updates without having to go in. And just to everyone's point too about the, one thing that I feel like in terms of parents feeling like they can trust, particularly our principals and stuff, is the fact that it's okay to say, here's what we know right now, but we'll get back to you with more information, so people don't think that we're like holding stuff back, because they tend to think that we do that for some reason. I don't know why. But so I'm sure, I was going to say, Mr. Evans knows better than anyone. But
I want to get back to one of the questions that Ms. Evans raised in terms of what do we do now? And I'll just share an experience. Last night, I was at the University of Shady Grove, and looking at the dual enrollment ceremony, which was the first. And it just struck me. That's something we do and don't do very well. We produce so much. And we spend so much time focusing on what is perceived as our faults that we forget all about our virtues. And seeing this, it was enormous to me, even though I had students there. I don't think we talk enough about our successes as a school system and the work that we do together.
Right.
That's some phenomenal stuff around graduation. And that, plus the work that was done by the Black Educators Association and the Hispanic Alliance, and when you look at where our children are going as a result of the education they receive, we need to look more at the work we do pre-K through 12 and celebrate that. And that's our motto in the Magruder cluster. And Mr. Davis knows that. He spent some time there. Is that, it's a pre-K through 12 endeavor. And that's what it is in our school system. And when you go to these ceremonies and you see maybe a lot more, that communication should be out there, because it was phenomenal.
You are correct. It was
Great.
absolutely phenomenal.
yeah, great recruiting locations as well.
Okay. All right. So we will not hold you any longer, but thank you for your comments, your presentation today. We really appreciate it. And it has informed us, and it will inform the work that we continue to do around our priorities. So I'll turn it back over to Mr. Davis. You're welcome.
All right, so we will thank you again to our principals and staff. We will transition. I ask Ms. Borges to please join us along with the members of the Family Engagement Advisory Team.
Good morning, committee members of the board. My name is Margarita Borges. I'm Acting Director of Student, Family, and School Services, supervising international enrollment, ESOL transition counselors, parent community coordinators, and a proud co-chair of FEET that I'll be introducing shortly. I am pleased to be here with you today to speak about communication via the lens of family engagement. It is my honor to present to you FEET, our Family Engagement Advisory Team, whose tireless efforts over the past 2 years have led to this moment and marks the beginning of a more targeted approach to collaboration between MCPS and families. FEET was established in the fall of 2020 under Everett Davis's leadership to improve students' school experiences and academic success, and to ensure equitable learning opportunities by engaging families in decision-making and program review. Our mission is to promote the research-based national PTA standards for family school partnerships, which focuses on the following priorities. 1, welcoming all families into the school community. 2, communicating effectively. 3, supporting student success. 4, speaking up for every child. 5, sharing power. And 6, collaborating with the community. It is Standard 2, communicating effectively, which brings us before you today. FEAT has spent the last 2 years representing families by elevating their hopes, concerns, and challenges. We will share their voice with you now in the hope of establishing a true dialogue and partnership with families. Next slide, please. We're there. No, sorry. Back to the last slide. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge our amazing FEAT members who represent a very diverse and dynamic group of caregivers. Their commitment to these efforts on behalf of all families is to be commended and fostered for years to come. I want to also acknowledge our family engagement specialist, Ms. Danielle Wilson-Sadler, whose support in this work has been invaluable, and our parent community coordinator, who's also been a huge part of this work, Farzana. Thank you. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce my fellow co-chairs, Renata Campante and Wen Chen, who will proceed with FEAT's recommendations for improved communication with families. These recommendations are made in the spirit of collaboration and establishing a true partnership with MCPS. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Margarita. I'm Renata Campante. I'm one of the FEAT co-chairs. I wanted to thank you all for this opportunity. We are thrilled to be here today and to talk about the work FEAT has been doing and offer our FEAT members collective feedback and recommendations in fulfillment of our commissioned advisory role to MCPS. In the past few months, our diverse team has discussed and brainstormed a range of issues and recommendations, including topics on improving communication and trust, equity and access to all children, school safety, mental health support, calendar, special projects, and change management. For today's presentation, we'll focus on the topic of improving communication and trust, and we hope to have future opportunities to engage with the board and MCPS leadership around the other topics listed here, but also possibly more. Next slide, please. Given the diverse representation of the MCPS families in FEAT, our team was mindful about taking a very collaborative and equitable approach to generate the recommendations we are presenting here today. As our first step, FEAT members' initial feedback and suggestions were collected into a shared capture sheet and then synthesized with all the ideas into an extensive written document with alignments to the national standards for effective family-school partnerships. We also worked with the communications department along the way to help frame the discussion and align goals, exchange information, and receive guidance. As you see, our group collectively created several slides, and I really mean collectively. And some of them cover a lot of ground, but we won't have time to discuss every one of them in detail, but look forward to coming back and continuing this conversation. Next slide, please. FEAT members have been very impressed by the motivation, dedication, and passion of the MCPS staff with which we have interacted and collaborated. In particular, we want to recognize Margarita and Danielle, who have been incredible partners, opening to listening to our many voices and committed to this work. And we are immensely grateful for the thoughtfulness that MCPS has displayed in putting us together as a team and offering such great support for our work. The authentic and inclusive engagement with the community embodied by FEAT's work is really what we want to see in our district, and we commend Dr. McKnight for embracing this initiative. We also want to commend MCPS for its broad outreach and engagement with the community around the anti-racist audit, and look forward to hearing its outcomes and the plan of action sprung by it. And we hope that this effort continues to reach far and wide. We also appreciate the use of clear subject lines in email messages and effective district communications about mental health resources and regarding food distribution and Chromebooks during the pandemic. Next slide, please. Building on the success of these initiatives by MCPS, FEET would like to recommend some future opportunities for improvement of communication and building trust with the diverse communities represented by our members. The recommendations are weaved around 3 central themes: transparency, accessibility, and accountability. We believe that these are the main goals that should guide communications in the district, and that thus present the biggest opportunities to strengthen the connection with our communities and build trust. Next, Wen Chen, my FEET co-chair, will share with you some of these opportunities that we collectively identified. Thank you.
Thank you, Renata, for your kind introduction. I'm Wen Chen. I am one of the co-chairs for the current FEET. On behalf of all the FEET members, I'd like to begin our collective recommendations on some immediate opportunities that could help MCPS to improve its communication and build trust. I should point out that most of these immediate opportunities are either what we consider as potentially low-hanging fruits or of a great sense of urgency, and they are meant to be advisory. In the areas of transparency, next slide, please. In the area of transparency, we strongly encourage MCPS to adopt earlier community engagement and buy-ins and advance notices on a variety of issues, such as changes that may affect student attendance in schools, as parents need adequate time to find alternative arrangements. Another example that have been brought up in multiple venues, loud and clear, is the gifted and talented or magnet programs selection processes, especially the elementary and middle school levels. Early community engagement and clear communication will help the development of more effective and productive selection criteria, more transparent admission and appeal processes, which will more likely gain support from the family communities and benefit all students. This issue is of great urgency because it impacts almost half of students at 3rd grade and 5th grade in MCPS every single year. We also suggest that PTSAs and school counselors could be more engaged to help family outreach. We strongly recommend delivering materials and informing parents more consistently across all MCPS schools. It was wonderful to hear some of the principals' presentations today, and they're really role models. Unfortunately, they're not implemented in all the schools, and that's what creates disparity. And some of those informations, including those related to onboarding new families, or important resources such as Parent Academy. Some of the FEET members know all about the Parent Academy for all the years being MCPS, while others never heard of it. The Parent Academy resources. So, I learned about it very accidentally, but it's a great resource that could be really made more available and accessible to parents. And the channels of communication with schools, if people can be more informed about how they could do that more broadly, that would be really helpful. Another example is Saturday programs. And IMCPS does a lot of outreach on that, but still many parents don't know about it. And also, we know MCPS have many wonderful resources like mindfulness videos, but most students and families have no access to them because they don't really know their existence. Last point here, for the sake of transparency, we also urge MCPS to waive fees on MPIA requests pertaining to information that MCPS policy dictates should have been made public in a timely manner. So next slide, please. Immediate opportunities to improve accessibility include 2 major areas. One is to further improve the searchability of MCPS websites, content, in particular, developing searchable FAQs, and make them available in multiple languages. I have a daughter who was applying for high school, and she said, I couldn't figure out how to apply. And she's quite a bright child. And she said, I searched and I couldn't get any right information. I think that sort of speaks on the challenge of the MCPS website content searchability. The second aspect relates to the need to significantly improve the ability of a regular family and students to provide feedback to MCPS. We talked about the Ask MCPS button earlier. I didn't even know its existence until I joined the feed. But I was like, oh, wow, that's wonderful. Maybe they could make it a little bit more visible on every single web page so parents and students can access them. And also enabling live feedback forms or Q&A functions during live webinar or content or online events, such as today's events. It would be nice for parents to watch it and then provide live feedback and questions. So next slide, please. We consider accountability as highly important to gain public trust. There may be two potentially easy to accomplish opportunities for enhancing accountability through improvement in communications. One is to provide clear, searchable, and frequently updated organizational charts at school administration levels as well as at central division and office levels in MCPS, so that parents and students have a clear understanding of the chains of command to raise and follow up on issues. Another suggestion is to add a searchable issues tracking page on BOE website with status update and ability for the public to make comments. This will not only enhance BOE's oversight function, but also update the public on board's progress on areas of interest. Next slide, please. In the next 3 slides, we will suggest a few opportunities which may take a bit more time to implement. In the area of transparency, for instance, it would be great to have permanent video archives of webinar-style town hall meetings conducted by MCPS staff with interpreters and multiple language translations, as well as the Q&A session. Another important area for improvement relates to consistency in access to all curriculum information. Because the elementary school and middle school mostly do not have fixed textbooks anymore, it has been hard for parents to follow what exactly kids are learning at schools. It is therefore incredibly important to give easy access to parents and students on the curriculum information, such as frameworks, scopes, sequence, expectations, curriculum guide, and blueprint, etc. The challenge here is true consistency in access across all schools. We heard some great examples, but many other schools don't have access. I don't really know what my kids are learning in school. I get the parent view, I know when the deadlines are, but I really don't know what's going to come out next or what they've learned in the past year. Next slide, please. We understand that MCPS has been utilizing focus groups to gain feedback for improvement, which we consider as a great strategy. We recommend MCPS to continue taking this focus group approach and apply it for the improvements of website usability as well by testing students and parents regularly. Maybe it could even be summer jobs or internships or SSL hour opportunities for our high school students who may be interested in this kind of activity, or even elementary school or middle school students. And another issue that came up quite a lot in our discussion is most feed members also think that it will be greatly beneficial to make the glossary of terms and acronyms of MCPS, which we have learned that they do exist somewhere in MCPS, more visible and searchable in a centralized web location. We just couldn't find them. So next slide, please. For the area of accountability, some opportunities with an immediate time frame include making it easier for the public to understand the procedures, regulations, and guidelines via the MCPS website at the minimum on how to raise issues and concerns, and making this type of content more searchable and in different languages. We all learned through FEET that all schools have a school improvement plan, or SIP, yet most parents never knew about its existence. It would be great to provide parents opportunities and incentives to participate in the SIP development and learn the outcomes on a regular or at least a yearly basis to improve engagement. Publicly measuring and tracking success in areas of communication and accountability could also help to demonstrate meaningful improvements. And I'll turn the mic to Renata, who will share with you some long-term opportunities.
Thank you. And we have also identified some future, more long-term opportunities for improving transparency, which include making existing digital resources available in a more organized way by having one single searchable catalog, designing templates that could streamline and help ensure the effectiveness of communications in schools, and also establish countywide programs for data management and records management. Next slide, please. Other long-term opportunities we have identified pertain to improving accessibility in the MCPS website by gathering information generated by user activity to make the website more searchable and functional, and also bringing usability to the forefront of the design process. Next slide, please. Finally, in the area of accountability, while we recognize the strides that have been made in providing professional development and training around communications, we believe there is still room for growth in this area in the future to make sure our communities are getting not only general information, but real questions to their answers. I think that's a key point. Getting our communities, answers to their questions. Sometimes we talk about the two-way communication. When a parent reaches out, it's important that we are really answering the questions in a way that it's meaningful. I would like to turn it over to Anne to close this out, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Renata. Next slide. Okay, through this closing slide, and on behalf of all the FEET members, some of whom are here today in the audience, or many of them are watching this video cast right now, I would like to thank the MCPS Board of Education and the leadership again for the opportunity to present our voices today. We commend MCPS leadership for the effort to find and select all 18 of us. From what I heard, was over 600 applicants to serve on this team. And we represent many experiences, cultures, races, colors, professions, and most importantly, voices across all facets of families in this county. We take our advisory mission very seriously and with full passion. In the last few months, we listened to and heard each other through numerous video conference calls. We debated, discussed, and learned to appreciate each other as we generate and deliver this presentation to you today. You can count on us to hear the most authentic voices from various facets of the MCPS family communities. We are committed to volunteer our personal time and skills, as well as our professional expertise through FEET. So let's continue this bi-directional engagement to tackle some of the most challenging issues and improve MCPS together. And thank you all for your attention. And this is the conclusion of our presentation.
So if I may, Ms. Evans, just quickly to thank, first of all, Ms. Borges, and also the FEET members. I did want to mention, just so it's on the record, that the vision, although I was a part of that vision, it was a shared vision. So thank you to Dr. McKnight, to Dr. Smith, and also to Tracy Potts, who I have to say, who was my former co in getting FEET started. I really could not have done it without them, and just excited to see that the legacy continues on, as you can see. So thank you, and at this time, we'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Evans. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for acknowledging the individuals that you named, that some are no longer here, that contributed to this, and this was a really this is very informative. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to see if they have any questions. Mrs. Smodrowski?
No, I don't really think I have any questions. I just want to say thank you so much. It's a lot for me, so I very well may end up having questions, but sitting here right now, I just want to say thank you for giving all of your time and, genuine feedback and input on this. Some of these immediate opportunities, I totally love and agree and feel like, shouldn't be too hard to do. But it's interesting listening to you all talk because I see myself in a lot of what you were discussing. Like every time I go on to try and search something, I'm like, I can't find it, forget it. And I'll ask somebody else. But so I think this is really an important committee. I very much appreciate all of your work on it and look forward to continuing to follow up as we go along.
Mrs. Silvestre?
Just wanted to also thank you for your willingness to help us improve our school system. This is how I got started myself in activism and volunteering. I did 10 years of this before I decided to run for the board. I wanted to ask the staff, we value our parents stepping up and giving time to help us. How will we process their recommendations, prioritize, accountability, and how many months will we see some of these things implemented?
May I? Yeah, so can we have that last slide, please? So I've already committed verbally. I've met with them previously, and as I stated earlier in the presentation, we will continue to meet and collaborate. I love how they've organized and given me goals up front and given me a little time later, all of us, a little time to work on those. But essentially, you'll see here in the final slide that the work we need to do involves, as with everything, about review and improvement, constant improvement. So we will continue to engage with our advisory groups. We will continue to develop our message and content ambassadors. It's not just from us. We need to further utilize our key partner communication channels because they have connections with community and families as well. We need to ensure that we're being culturally responsive in our approach to communications. And as I mentioned a long time ago, our usability groups, our current homepage and staff homepage were developed by usability groups and Google search input. There is a big button there, for example, in enrollment, which leads you to a page with a 3-step process for enrollment. But when people say they can't find it, well, what's wrong with it now, right? Because that was 4 years ago. So, this is work to be done, and search is high on the list of things to address. Very quickly, and I'll leave it there, search is something we focus a great deal on. We're so large, search is so very important. So SEO are the words on the page that people look for, number one. 2, in our search, we're able to implement what are called promotions. We have a little more than 1,440 of those in which we can set a page to come up with a long list of search items, and it's featured in a gray box at the top. And when we develop a new page, especially of system-wide importance, we do that work to make sure that search treats it that way. So clearly more needs to be done because we have people who say, I can't find it. So that's just inspirational to do this work and to continue to meet with the teams who recognize it because they do the searching. We do the creating, they do the searching. Mr. Davis.
And Ms. Silvestre, if I may as well, thank you for the question. I wanted to add, maybe it's a shameless plug that Ms. Borges and I were just having this conversation, but with the feet, part of the vision was to have a rotation so that we could continue to sustain the work. I talked about that legacy. So our first cohort members are coming to the end of their first tenure, I should say, 2-year tenure as a part of FEET. We're just using them as one example of the many, of course, community and parent groups that we work with, but sustaining that work. So as I was saying, the first cohort is nearing the end of their tenure. Then the second cohort, which both of our ladies here are part of, We'll continue that work. So the idea was that we did not lose all of the knowledge, the archived work, the progress that the group has made, so it would continue in the future. So that's one piece of this. But also I would add, and going back to, as you asked the question, Ms. Sylvester, I thought about our strategic plan, as I always start off every one of my presentations linking that to. Coming back to one of the goals within our strategic plan, which talks about making sure we have representation of our families that, of course, look like the demographic of our system. So continuing to work with them and ensuring, that's just one of the goals, but ensuring that we are linking the work that they are doing with the strategic planning goals as well.
Yeah, I'm sure more parents will want to participate if the cohort can say, I participated for 2 years and these are the things that changed as a result. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Can I just follow up on that, though? So just who is it, does this fall under your office then, in terms of, you know, going down the checklist? Okay, we did that. Okay, we did that. Okay, we did that.
It's really more in my office.
Okay.
And we're going to get together and review those goals, and we're going to talk about what is capable, able, how that should work, and we'll move from there. I fully expect we'll be coming back before this committee and reporting on some of that progress. It only makes sense.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, there was so much more that we didn't cover. It was information that we definitely want to hear, so we look forward to having you all back. I just want to thank my colleagues for all the great questions they asked today. Thank you all that played a role in putting this meeting together so that we could be able to share with our community what the expectations are around communication at the district, school and classroom level. Just really appreciate you all. Continue to be of service because it's greatly needed. We value your voices, your perspective. And with that, we are going to adjourn our meeting if there are no other questions from my colleagues. Okay. So have a good rest of the week, and thank you. And we are adjourned. Thank you.